everyone. This is your host, Gaylon McDowell, and this is the Meta Behind Relationships. Today, we're going to have a powerful conversation about creating a peaceful home. Many times, people do not have peace, even in their own homes, with their primary relationships. And I want to just give you some tools today to help you understand how you can create a peaceful home and what is necessary to make sure that you are maintaining your own peace of mind no matter what. So, as always, to have this powerful conversation around the meta behind relationships, the metaphysics, the consciousness transformation, the divine laws and principles that govern the universe. To have this conversation, I'm going to bring on the CEO and founder of the 5S for Love platform, Christine Burkett.
Hey, Gaylon.
Hey, Christine.
I'm going to say this. I don't even know if you've been in my mind, right? But this is so needed. Like right now, I think with everything that's combating people, and I see it from a perspective that a lot of people are dealing with a lot of things. And I know when I talk to you, send me different links and different things. And thank you, by the way, for the meditation links and all the additional information, because it's really helped me center myself, which is related to peace. And I think because I needed to be centered in order to battle everything else around me, I was scattered and you didn't even know it. So you doing this is huge for me because you getting ready to help me. Like I tell people, when you watch, you're actually in on my session. So welcome to my session today with Gaylon McDowell about peace, because I need to make sure I'm maintaining my inner peace. So the first thing I want to ask you is, people may have different understandings of what peace is. So can you explain from your perspective what is peace?
Okay, so I wrote down something because I just wanted to make sure I have some thoughts. So I'm gonna look down to read. These are my thoughts. So this doesn't mean that this is the Webster's Dictionary version of peace. Let me just be clear about it. Okay, Webster's Dictionary, I'm sure, has a great definition of peace that you can look up on your own. This is the meta behind relationships. So you're trying to get Galen McDowell's perspective. All right, peace is a byproduct of a harmonious mind in thought and feeling.
Mm.
Peace is more than the absence of conflict. It is a mental state based in love, wisdom, and understanding. Peace is an individual experience that can be shared and experienced with others. Do I need to read it again just to
I
help
think
you?
you need to read that
Okay.
again.
Okay. What is true peace? Peace is a byproduct of a harmonious mind in thought and feeling. Peace is more than the absence of conflict. It is a mental state based in love, wisdom, and understanding. Peace is an individual experience that can be shared and experienced with others.
Okay, so let's break this down, because the harmonious.
Yes.
Can you give us like an example of what harmonious is for an individual
Okay.
seeking
When
peace?
things are in harmony, let's look at it from a standpoint of music, vibration. When
Okay.
I was in high school, I studied. One of my shops was high tech data machine repair, even though I don't know how to fix stuff now. But back then, I was pretty good. And we had to learn about sine waves,
Okay.
music, and electricity. I know is your scientific background. You know what I'm talking about. So when we would listen, for instance, we would plug into the machine that tested the sine waves.
Mhm.
If a, if we put in classical music, for instance, the sine waves were really big, wide, and clean. And then we would put in, and I'm not saying this makes it better or worse, but we would put in, like, whatever rock and roll station or whatever, and it was very agitated. And this
Yes.
is why people say, "Oh, play classical music or other things for children or whatever,
Very
things
simple.
that calm and relax,"
Right.
because things that are in harmony have a balance. So maybe another way of saying harmonious is, are do you have mental and emotional states that are balanced, that are not easily disrupted, that you're not in a state of reaction, but
Mm.
you're actually in a state of having a space of, or a space mentally, to where life is happening,
Right.
and like a hurricane, that has the winds going all around it, but it has the I within it that's calm, meaning that you can be calm or harmonious in thought and feeling, even though things are happening around you. So, in other words, you have experiences, but you're not the experience.
I like that you have experience, but you're not the experience. So if you're looking at this and then you flip it around, a person who's dealing with internal conflict is really not at peace. If you're dealing with that, not external conflict, just internal conflict. And I think a lot of times internal conflict comes from different things that's impacted your life from the time that you could express or comprehend or how can I say process a feeling.
Mhm.
So, I have people say, I remember when I was 2, this happened. I go, you saw that and remember that at 2, like this person got shot in front of you. I can't process back that far. So I think when you talk about peace, can you kind of walk us through when you're dealing with those internal conflicts that then play out on an external?
Well, the first thing we have to be mindful of is anything that's happening internally uh, normally starts with a thought or an impression.
Okay.
What I mean by that, you've thought something, you've given something meaning, you attach feeling to it. Anytime a person has a feeling or an emotion, it always begins with a thought, even though people don't think it began with a thought or an impression. And what do I mean by an impression? You were around something like the person you just gave the example of. Something
Mhm,
happened,
mhm.
and now your mind has to process, what does this mean to me? Like, for instance, what happened in Michigan State a
Yes.
couple of days ago. As I was watching the news, these young people that were in the building when the person was shooting are now trying to process the
Mhm.
fear, the anxiety, and all of the other range of emotions that would go along with the fear that
Yeah.
they were experiencing. Now, so when something happens, an impression, now the question comes into play is, what do I do with it? Now,
Mhm.
unfortunately, most impressions slide very easily through the conscious mind into the subconscious mind and registers as a feeling, as an emotion. And now that emotion is a part of I'm gonna use a metaphor, the gumbo of your mentality. All
I
right.
like that,
And
the
it has
gumbo.
it now is seasoning
Right.
how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. So when we start talking about peace, all right, and the internal dialogue, the question actually is, okay, I have to say it just very plainly.
Mhm.
Am I safe in my own mind? Some people
That's
don't
the
feel,
question.
yeah, am I safe in my own mind? Because
Mhm.
if I don't feel safe with my own thoughts, with my own emotions, that there's no way I can have peace.
Which, i.e., which people don't understand the part about anxiety.
Yeah.
Anxiety is really playing into that fear. And I'm not going to say anxiety is not real. One of my really good friends takes medication for anxiety. She goes into severe panic attacks. And it desperately concerns me because anything can trigger it. Anything, it's not just one thing. So my thing is that internal conflict, that peace that you don't have within yourself. And to me, the external is the anxiety of
Yeah.
that not having that inner peace,
Right. Now,
um
right. So what I tell people is this: I'm in the church building right now. Across the street, there's a, there's a grocery store, a big strip mall, a grocery store, a jewel grocery store, Blue Cross Blue Shield, a lot of stores that buy shoes and other stuff. So if I told a person, go across to the street to the grocery store and buy me some anxiety, go and buy me some frustration, go and buy me some whatever the emotion that people are experiencing. A person would say, well, I can't do that. Why?
mhm,
Because it doesn't exist out here.
mhm,
Okay. Which means that it is self-generated.
mhm.
Okay. So my perspective is, if something is self-generated mentally, then it can be dissolved mentally and something else can be generated.
Mm-hmm.
So the question comes into play, and again, for anybody that's on medication, and I have loved ones that are also on medication for mood regulation. So this is no
Yes.
shade.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you need to do to make it. Okay.
Period.
Period. Okay. But not but and I don't want to say
Mm-hmm.
but because but disregards what comes before it.
Exactly.
And I want to invite you to the conversation
Mm-hmm.
that you have the ability to choose mental states that support you versus mental states that bring you down. Peace, when it's all said and done, is a choice. But if I start with the conversation that peace is a choice, then the mental argument in people's minds start up.
Mm-hmm.
What about this? You don't know what I went through. You don't know about my family background. You don't know about the ex. You don't know about my children. You don't know about my job. You don't know about my business ventures. You don't know about my neighbors. You don't know. It's always something.
Always.
And I always go back to a statement I read 20 plus years ago in A Course in Miracles, probably 25 years ago now. I'm never upset for the reason I think.
That is like a whole show, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a whole show. I'm never upset for the reason I think. Folks,
Write it
that's a
down,
show.
Christine, so we
Look,
can do it later.
that's coming in March. That's I'll write that down. Look, where my sticky? Y'all know I keep my sticky notes.
I know you got notepads if nothing else.
Listen, I got them notepads. Okay, so that's the show. Folks, I'm about to write that down. Okay, Gaylon, one of my biggest pet peeves is that, and this is just for me, I do so much work on myself to separate what I'm going through emotionally to how I respond to people in the real world, right? So that whole concept of leave when you walk through the doors for work, leave home at home, that's my mentality. Is that whatever I'm trying to manage in my personal life, it should never self-reflect in how I interact with anybody outside of that space. And I think, to me, with social media, we have grown accustomed to just oversharing and over expressing. And this is just, and now there is no, Chinese wall, so to
Yeah.
say. The
Well,
Chinese wall is gone.
yeah. Well, what I will say is there was a wall, a great wall of China, metaphorically within everyone, up to
Yes.
an extent. And the reason why I say up to an extent is for two reasons. The first one, and I want to get them out so I don't forget them.
Mm-hmm. Go
The
ahead.
first one is, as the psychologist Maria Nemeth once wrote, that life is holographic. And by holographic, that means everything affects everything, like a holograph. All of the
Right.
things come in together. So when you think you're separating things, you don't realize how your money is affecting your relationship, how your relationship is affecting your work, how your work is
Yes.
affecting how you deal with your children, how you deal with your children is affecting how you deal with your friends, how you deal with your friends is affecting your health, because life is holographic.
Mm-hmm.
We try to create borders
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to when our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and we get upset when it bleeds over. Now, I'm not saying that I think that there's a difference between a border that doesn't really exist
Right.
in roles that you play in specific spaces. Okay. What had a role do I need to play in this space? But to
Mm-hmm.
think that the other things won't affect other spaces, in my opinion, is impractical.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is, there's a thing that they call the shadow, in Jungian psychology, which means that when a person tries to suppress a certain aspect of themselves that they don't want to deal with, it has a way of showing up in an ugly way, in another aspect of their lives. And people on their own can look up. It was a documentary with Deepak Chopra and
Mm-hmm.
what was her name? Debbie Ford, many years ago, on the shadow. I can't remember, it was The Secret of the Shadow or something. I don't
Right.
remember what the name of it was. I have the DVD at home, but because I do my research. I always tell people. I used to tell. Side note, the legendary Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who trained, ordained me, and etc. who was a legendary minister in Chicago and around the world, I used to always tell her, you might have people that might be better than me, but they won't outstudy me. Anyway, that was my commitment. You will
Right.
not have people that will outstudy me.
Well,
I
now
will
I'm sorry.
always have more research than somebody else. Anyway, but the shadow is a part of the subconscious mind that says, okay, since you don't want to deal with me, I'm going to express in some other way. So you can have somebody at work that looks clean and pristine and they do everything, and then they go home and they're horrible to their spouse or their children, they're beating or violent or whatever.
Right.
Or you have CEOs that are exposing themselves on Zoom meetings and whatever. Like how like like you say, this doesn't make sense until you
Doesn't make.
understand psychology.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when you understand psychology, that's the shadow. That's the aspect of the subconscious mind that people want to ignore or even sometimes pretend that it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things about not being authentic and not addressing issues. So I tell people that when something comes up, it comes to get healed. If you
Right.
push it back down, now you got to deal with it again because
Yep.
it's like being in a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just use this analogy, you're in a swimming pool and you got a bunch of beach balls, and you're trying to hold one ball underwater, and then another one pops up, and then another one pops up, and another one pops up, and another one pops up. This is how people address their peace of mind
Mm-hmm.
because they don't deal with healing the situation, healing the thought, healing the emotion, healing
Mm-hmm.
the depression, healing the anxiety, healing the fear, healing the frustration. Many times, even in counseling, and I've counseled many people through the years, people don't want to address it. They just want to get a temporary fix. They want a patch up job versus actually dealing with the issue.
And dealing
So,
with it.
so what I tell folks is really something simple. I didn't make this up many years ago, but I just tell folks something I read many years ago. I think it was from Joe Goldsmith. People don't want to wake up from the dream.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to have nightmares.
That's it right there. They don't want to wake up from the dream. They just don't want to have nightmares. Folks, when we get back, we're going to talk about what is peace in a relationship. So we're going to look at how internal conflict and how you express love can play out in your peaceful relationship that you are desperately trying to have. But sometimes life just kind of gets in the way. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
My name is Christine Burkett, the inventor of the 5 F's to Love. This is a compatibility app. It's an app that gives you an opportunity to rate words that start with the letter F in chronological order of importance to you, to help you find your one true love, your soulmate, and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So after you've taken the time to rate your F's in chronological order, you send a link to the person, I don't know, you just met, or the person you've been dating for quite some time. Or maybe it's the person you've been married to for 30 to 40 to 50 years. And then you compare your top 5 F's to find out what things you have in common and things that you may perhaps need to work on. This is taking a simplistic perspective on how to find your one true love, your soulmate, the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you for downloading the 5 F's app.
Welcome back, everybody.
Gaylon, I'm going to tell you that commercial, I was thinking the whole time, you know, being harmonious, and we were talking about frequencies, being harmonious to me is peace. Like when you said, I play a lot of what people call orchestra music or opera music because it helps me think and it really calms me. And that's one of the things I used when I was raising my son is that when I wanted him, you try to stop a baby from crying, right? And one of the things I would do is I would just play music to kind of calm him, to soothe him instead of me constantly coddling him. And what I wanted to teach him is that he would have to sometimes, I'm not going to always be around. You're going to have to calm yourself
Mm-hmm.
and get inner peace within yourself. Well, I don't know what's going on. You're a baby. You don't talk, but I need to teach you how to manage this because as a single parent, I needed him to be independent. And I think sometimes when you talk about relationships, when people look at what is peaceful in a relationship, I want to tell people like what you said one time. You said, I was whole before I met my wife. So when they say you two halves and you become a whole, That's the whole thing. In a relationship, I'm thinking you need to have your own center of peace and not thinking this person is going to bring me peace, this relationship kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You become so dependent on that. And I feel like people's external or so internal conflicts and their expression of love, when it's not reciprocated, become it plays out in their own head, right? And then, i.e., what is a peaceful relationship at that point? Like, how do you? Because you've never experienced it. So you go listen. You know, I got my sticky notes, so I'm ready. Let's hit it. I
Okay,
need that.
what is a peaceful relationship? It is a relationship based on mutual respect, love, understanding, integrity, and grace. You can't have a peaceful relationship or home without the people in the home having a peaceful state. So let me break this down a little bit. A relationship based upon mutual respect. I'm a big believer in respect
Mhm.
because when you don't, you can always tell when people don't have respect for another individual, how they talk about them, how they treat them, how they regard them, how they disregard them. All of those things show up very quickly when there's no mutual respect. Love. And love shows up in many ways. You know, from a metaphysical standpoint, love is the idea and divine mind of universal oneness. What does that mean? It shows up in human experience as kindness, as compassion, as cooperation, you know, things of that nature. Uh, you want those things should be showing up if you're talking about love. Understanding, you know, do you if you have an understanding of yourself first and then
Mhm.
another individual, then it's easier to interact with other people. I'll often say understanding determines if something is a problem or not.
Mhm.
All right. The example of I used when my truck got stopped and wouldn't start, and I was at Target, at the Super Target, and I pulled the hood up. I'm looking around. I'm not a mechanical guy, and I'm trying to figure out why my car won't start. I call the insurance. They send the guy out with the tow truck, and before he tows it, he says, "Well, let me look under the truck for a moment." I've been out there 45 minutes. He said he's looking under my hood for 30 seconds. Hey, try to start it now. Starts right up. What was the difference between me and that guy? Understanding. Understanding determines if something is a problem or not. Many times, the reason why there are breakdowns in relationships because there's not a base of understanding of how to handle what's in front of them, how to handle the situation and circumstance that they're dealing with right now. So when understanding isn't available, emotion kicks in, and emotion can bring everything with it. All right.
Mhm.
Then there's integrity. Integrity just means, okay, are you honest? Are you functioning in a way that's reliable? I'm sitting
Mhm.
in a chair right now. You are as well. You wouldn't sit in the chair if you didn't believe in the integrity of the chair.
Right.
The integrity of the chair allows your mind to focus on other things. Many times people are in relationships where they don't have the integrity isn't there, so they can't focus on the health of the relationship because they're dealing with what's going to happen next. Can I trust
Mhm.
this person? What are they going to do? What are they going to say? How are they going to react? The integrity isn't there. And grace. And what I just tell couples and family members that come to talk to me is simply this: no one is going to show up perfectly all the time. Excellence is the standard, not perfection.
Mhm.
Show some grace.
Right.
People want grace when they mess up and want to kick people in the behind when other people mess up.
Yep.
And it's just inconsistent to me. If you
Yep.
want grace, show grace. And if you
Yep.
don't give yourself grace, you're not going to give anybody else some grace. So the first person you need to give grace to
Is
is
yourself.
yourself. All right. Now, the reason why I say you can't have a peaceful relationship or home without the people that are involved
Mhm.
being at peace, meaning you can be at peace. But for you to have a peaceful home, the people in the home have to be in harmony. Not in perfection,
In harmony.
but in harmony. Okay. Around the big picture. That doesn't mean that you will never have an argument or breakdowns and things of that nature. But when mutual respect, love, understanding, integrity, and grace are there, you have the ability to come back from breakdowns. But when those things aren't there, they escalate into other things, including poor choices, saying
Mhm.
things that you can't take back, and doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
So, you know what? I really appreciate you breaking that down because the mutual respect, um, to me, is so crucial to a relationship because it shows up different. And I always tell people mutual respect and love to me is like a combo because this is the example I always give to somebody. A man comes home every day and he tells you he loves you. He's consistently saying that I love you. But then 10 minutes later, he sees something that he disagrees with and he knocks you out on the floor. So then you have to ask yourself, does he really love me? And does he even respect me as a person? Because to me, when you look at that big picture, you have to then question in your mind, where are you in your headspace that you're allowing this to happen? And then where is that understanding between us that we should be able to talk this through? But again, those are always my concerns. And I say the same thing when I see a woman yelling at her spouse in public. And that bothers me. So I say to myself, it's like a mutual respect. I had to ask a friend of mine, I said, I like your wife, but it kind of concerns me that if there's anything that even out around us that she disagrees with when it comes to you, she literally goes at you as if her corrective behavior moment, because she's a therapist, she thinks she needs to correct behavior in real time. Because in her mind, that's what she practices in real time, corrective. But I don't think you should be correcting a spouse since he's not a child and everyone has an opinion. So that's what I'm saying. So with that mutual respect, a lot of people, how can I say this? They don't even know what it looks like because they're so damaged.
Yeah.
Mutual respect to them is sometimes control. It plays out different ways. So can you kind of walk through that mutual respect and Gaylon's recommendations or suggestions of things to look for when you know you have it and when you need to work on it?
Okay. So first of all, mutual respect is, first of all, I'm not going to talk to you any kind of way. I'm going to talk to you in a way that makes sense based upon our agreed ways of when there's breakdowns, these are the lines that won't be crossed.
Right.
That's respect. Mutual respect is me not only anticipating your needs, but wanting to anticipate and make sure that you're good as you make sure that I'm good and you're anticipating mine. Breakdowns of mutual respect obviously show up as lying, obviously violence, emotional, mental torment, physical, etc. But it could also be subtle things, disregarding a person's opinion, dismissing their input, or ability to choose, trying to control and manipulate another person. All of those are ways in which mutual respect, when you start talking about couples or siblings or family members, because it's not just intimate relationships, but it could be many things. Problem comes into play is violence has been mixed with love. And I'm about to say something that might make some people uncomfortable, but I have to say it this way for people to understand how deeply rooted it is in the psyche of humanity. Religion has blended violence with love. Okay, so if you look at Christianity, you can look at Islam, Judaism, and many others. God is viewed as loving and judgmental and violent. Okay, God is punitive in their perspective. All right, so much so that didn't make a difference what you do or didn't do. In the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible, sacrifices and scapegoats and all of these processes were to keep people in alignment. All these prophets and other things that people would show up to stop the wrath of God showing up. Even though love and grace is taught, as well by many of the prophets of the Old Testament and things of that nature, it was also, as people read Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Right.
Even though that word fear really means in Hebrew to be in awe in that context. But people don't look at it that way. They interpret that to be scared.
Yep.
Right down to the Jesus dynamic, and again, I'm not trying to tell anybody why they shouldn't believe what they believe, but as a metaphysical Christian, one of the things that I'm connected to, and I'm connected to family dynamics in a minute, but I'm trying to weave it down.
Oh no, I like it. Please do.
Okay. So the what people, the Christian dynamic around crucifixion is, when it's all said and done, humanity is so deplorable and what's the word, and does not deserve the love and grace of God, that the innocent, the ultimate scapegoat, Jesus, the innocent scapegoat, the pure scapegoat, has to be punished for God to love you and accept you into his presence. With the caveat that if you don't accept the punitive way in which redemption was brought to you, you will still be condemned, not to learn a lesson, not to change, not to transform, but to be punished for eternity. Okay. So my friend, the Aramaic Bible scholar, Dr. Rocco Errico, calls this sacred violence. And sacred violence just means how the psyche projects that something is the problem. And when you project that something is the problem, then that has to be scapegoated for me to feel peace. This is why, oh boy, I didn't mean to go into this today. This might get your podcast canceled.
Go, Gaylon. You got to go. I trust you.
Okay. This is why when people have the baptism and the coming to the altar, they feel a sense of peace because they've taken their stuff off of them.
Yes.
Metaphorically, not literally, but mentally and energetically put it on Jesus.
Yes.
So their concept of Jesus.
Right.
Okay, this horrible sin nature of me and my mistakes and whatever, I'm going to throw it on him.
Yep.
And wow, now I feel relaxed and peaceful. I haven't really dealt with my psychology.
Say it again.
Dealt with it.
Have not dealt with it.
Okay. But I feel a sense of peace because I've projected it on someone else. I've made something else the scapegoat.
Yep.
All right. Now, when violence shows up in a person's concept of religion and God and even salvation, and it shows up the same way in many things, in Islam and Judaism, I can give him many examples, but I don't want the show to get lost in the theology. Now it shows up because I have so many examples, is almost unreal because I study this. So if God's love shows up as violence,
yes,
then when parents are dealing with their children and their love shows up violently, they have the ultimate example of why that's necessary in their mind, even if it's at an unconscious level. So I remember my grandmother saying to me, my maternal grandmother would whoop me with the switch and all that type of stuff. If she was old school Mississippi, go out there and give me a switch to whoop you with. And let me tell you, I don't know if there's been anybody on this planet that loved me more than her. Like,
right.
Really. But in her mind, any infraction required
the switch,
stern discipline. All right. Therefore, she would say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And I would tell her, no, it doesn't. Trust me, it does not. So when I decided to raise my daughter, I told, my, now ex-wife, like, we're not, we need to be better parents. We both know what it's like to have love and violence. And my perspective was this. I'm not going to be the man in my daughter's life that was going to tell her as a child that I love you and then use violence as a part of my love.
Yes.
So I said, I'm going to have to figure out how to parent better so I don't have to parent her the way I was raised with violence as the punitive way in which love was quote unquote shown to me. Now, Did that require extra effort? Yes.
Yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Did it require extra attention and intention?
Yes.
Absolutely yes. Does that mean I was a pushover? Absolutely not, because I'm not that type of personality. And did I think I did a good job? I think she's a pretty decent young lady as a young woman. But what I wanted to do was remove the violence from the love when it came to my child.
Right.
So it's easy to show how somebody can say, how a person can interpret, well, when my mama or my daddy or my grandmother loved me, they were also punitive when I messed up. Right. And this person is now convincing me that I'm messing up, and now they're being violent with me. That's a small bridge.
Right.
Okay. And because I messed up, not because I did it, but because Adam and Eve did it thousands of years ago, that means God has to be punitive with me as well. Mm-hmm. It's all intermingled. And it expresses itself. So when people show up from a standpoint of pure love and non-judgment, people don't even know how to react to it.
They don't.
Because it's foreign.
It's foreign.
Because when I tell people, can you just accept a God that just loves you?
Just the way you are.
But the judgment and the second coming, and Jesus is going to blow the world up, or jihad, or the whatever, the versions of whatever people got to do. Mm-hmm. Can you just accept a God that just loves you and has empowered you to create the life you desire? And if life isn't showing up the way you want it to, it's not because God is punishing you. You're not punished for your sins. You're punished by them, by the mistakes you make and what we make collectively as a society.
Yes. And you know what? I feel like I need to write that down. Impacted by your choices. That's a whole different show. Okay.
I didn't know this was going to end up being a theological show. It was not in my mind. We got
2 shows. We're always theological. Folks, listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to talk about what interferes with a peaceful relationship. Folks, if you have not noticed, you should be, grabbing a notebook. We talk about this every week. So you need to watch it twice, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Look at me, I'm on. 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 Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going. Can't stop, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Hold up. Yeah. I'm chasing the bag, I'm racing the clock. Look at them plot, watching them plot. See this in my sleep when I ain't had shit but my thoughts in the car. I really was lost. Now I'm public with the soundscapes. Niggas floss, I'm really pulling strings for the pound cake. I see you went for a puppet in the clown face for a little wage. That shit the talk of the town.
Yeah, what's up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, ain't shifts, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's an off day. Now we on road, came from smoking in the hallway. Now we got shows, boys feeling like Broadway. Always look both ways, even on a crossway. Driving down Cross Bay, out town Barclays. Really on big things, came up a small way. Championship rings, baby, that's a ball game. Oh, she want a little bag, baby, that's small change.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Meta Behind Relationships with Gaylon. If you just saw that promo, please click subscribe on our YouTube channel. It is free. It does not cost you anything to subscribe. That'll keep you in tune with everything that we do. And when any of our episodes go live from 8 to 9 p.m. Tomorrow, don't forget to tune in for Real Talk with the Men. We're going to talk about healing and self-love for men. So, Gaylon, I feel like this conversation, we need to play it tomorrow while we're actually doing the podcast tomorrow. When you talk about peace and relationships, if you can just dive right in for me, because this is really big. What interferes with that?
Oh, it's a couple of things. The first is a lack of communication. Obviously, I'm a big believer in communication. Some people have very high communication style. Some people have very low communication style. Some people over communicate. In other words, they share so much stuff, but they don't get to the point of what they're trying to say. And some people say so few words that you just have to almost guess and try to read their minds because you just don't know what the heck they're talking about.
I don't even know what's going on.
I'm a high communication person. I believe in, I'm a big believer that assumptions are, assumption is the mother of all mess ups. So I try to make sure that,
oh my gosh,
that I'm clear so nobody misinterprets what I'm saying or my intention. So lack of communication is the first thing. I think people need to understand and communicate and understand who your family members and also how they communicate and make sure that, read the room, understand whether it's your significant other or your children's family, spouse, mother, father, grandparents, uncle, auntie. Everybody has a communication style. And many people, they wall themselves out. They have walls up many times. So sometimes it's hard to get through to authentic communication. So you have to build some of the other things. Dishonesty interferes with a peaceful relationship because, again, if I can't trust you, then it's problematic because now you're occupying mental space that I shouldn't have to have occupied. I have a general rule. I don't like people around me I don't trust.
Right.
Not in my personal spaces. If I have to go in spaces, where, for instance, ministry leads me into,
right.
I'm mindful of my space. I'm prayed up and I go and do what I got to do when I get out of there because I don't believe in being around people that I can't trust. Now, I don't believe that just people are bad and wrong. I believe I live in a friendly universe and I meet friendly people when I show up.
Exactly.
But I'm also not a fool. I recognize everybody doesn't have good intentions.
Yep.
Therefore, I maintain my spiritual consciousness to allow me to go in spaces to where that's not an issue for me. I really don't bump into that issue, really. It's not an issue for me. I realize that may be for other people. Lack of trust. So dishonesty sometimes leads to lack of trust. Sometimes people just have trust issues in the first place. You met them with trust issues because of their past, the upbringing or previous relationships, breakdowns, etc. So lack of trust breaks down a peaceful relationship. How can you have peace when you don't trust the person?
Exactly.
Many people don't trust the person that they sleep in the same bed with every day.
Every day.
Okay? I know what it's like for the phone to ring and not want to answer that phone because I know it's lies on the other end of that phone.
Yeah.
Okay. I know what it's like to show up and people try to manipulate me based upon my relationship. And see, I call it out. So for me, it's not even like, hey, look, okay. So we don't have to have no misunderstandings. I'm very direct because why sugarcoat it? But that's me. And I realize everybody doesn't have my personality. What I would say is, especially around lack of trust, if a person is giving you a legitimate reason not to trust them, then you need to be very mindful about why they're in your space. That's all I'll say about that. Disrespect, which I think I've covered already in some great level of detail, and misunderstandings. Sometimes it's just a perception mistake.
Perception.
So you see it this way, I see it that way. And because we're not on the same vibe, now there's a breakdown based upon a misunderstanding. It's just a misperception issue. And when you talk it out and get an understanding, as Stephen Covey was saying, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek to understand, then to be understood. And many ways in which I tell people something I didn't create. When a person explains something to you, restate it. Let me be clear about what you're saying.
Exactly.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then restate it as you understand it. Now, understanding does not mean agreement.
It does not.
Sometimes people think that because sometimes you don't get to a firm agreement.
Nope.
You have a strong relationship, you can disagree without being disagreeable.
And just have a mutual understanding.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. So when I tell people about creating peaceful relationships, whether it's with, again, siblings, significant other, children, parents, friends, co-workers, whatever, it's understanding their relationship paradigm. Everybody has one. I did a whole show in this Meta Behind Relationships. People can go back and look at it.
It's
Where I talked about what is your partner's relationship paradigm. But you don't have to just apply that to your partner.
Right.
If you work and you have a supervisor, or you're a supervisor and you have employees working underneath you, they have relationship paradigms too of how they show up in work relationships. All right. And if you understand that, like, when I was working in management in the grocery business pre-ministry, we used to have on in the office, the management office, deal with the issue, not the person. And that was a way of making sure that we weren't making it personal. But what I also had to learn was there are nuances and personality to get the best out of individuals. I had to know how to talk to them. I needed to know how to probe. Some people you just leave alone and they do what they need to do. Some people require more micromanaging. Some people require not violence, but I would just say metaphorically the foot on behind to motivate them. And some people you just needed to let go. Okay, because you have to understand how they move. All right. And so if you want peaceful relationships, you got to make sure there's not a lack of communication, there's no dishonesty, there's no lack of trust, there's no disrespect, and there's no misunderstanding. And remember, excellence is the goal, not perfection.
I like that. Gaylon, I had to, and I tell people all the time, I'm not like those people. I'm not going to print the happy things and you're going to think my life is so great and perfect, because it's not. And even I really enjoyed being in this relationship with this person, but I consistently saw that there was some interference in our communication, which, drastically impacted the peace. And it's not that anything was wrong with that person, but it was just they talked in sound bites. And I'm the kind of person, I'm going to ask clarifying questions. I don't ever assume. So if our communication broke down, I said, hey, I'm concerned. I don't feel as connected to you as I did. I feel like there's some sort of breakdown. Is everything okay? Let's talk about this. I really do love you. I want to be with you, but I kind of need to kind of feel through what this gray space is right now between us. The person came back at me, and to be totally honest, and you're a minister, so excuse my mouth. Fuck you. You're always a pessimist. Why are you always picking at shit? Did I say something was wrong? Now, my thing was, what I said to you was out of love. And I think it would be okay for me to say to you, I'm concerned about something because it's impacting me emotionally, but I just want to clear it up, like to make sure we're good. We're both on the same page. That person came right back at me with, and when I tell you I was shocked, I was like, what's happening? Like, I'm trying to talk to you about do we have an issue? If we didn't have an issue, I was expecting the response to be, babe, we're good. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was hung up. I just hung up.
Exactly. But see, that's what I'm saying. So I did. So at this point, it's like women and men, you got to understand when your communication was the first thing Gaylon said. And if this person is unwilling to just have a casual conversation about what's going on, and their first response is to attack me verbally with such a negative tone, that's telling you this is not going to work. Like,
because that's disrespect. And the problem with it is this. Let me look at it from two perspectives. First of all, like, I don't know who you think you're talking to. I don't let people talk to me like that. This conversation needs to end. Bye. Click. And even though we don't do click anymore, that's still from my psychology. That's slamming that phone down. So there's that, because that's lack of disrespect. But let me look at it from the other perspective. And this is strictly when you talk to guys. So I don't know. I'm not saying this is universal between men and women or general. This is when I talk to guys. One of the issues that guys consistently come to me about is this. When they think a thing has been talked and exhausted, and a woman comes with a whole nother bag of, we need to talk about this more. Okay, we talked about it, and I've communicated, and we've communicated, and nothing, and isn't allowed to die.
Right.
So it turns into, from the guys that I've talked to, and I've experienced this, so I'm not going to sit up there and say I haven't. The perspective of nagging, I call it the Charlie Brown syndrome.
Yep.
So in adult, anybody that grew up watching Charlie Brown knows when the adults would talk, they only heard wah 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 wah. Now, guys learn very early. Mama does wah 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 wah, and then they get with a girlfriend or wife, wah 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 wah. Because after a while, because guys are trying to, okay, what do we need to do to resolve this?
Right.
And once they like, okay, is this clear? And now we picking it back up and putting it back down, picking it up and putting it back. That creates irritation.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm not excusing that guy's behavior, because his response was disrespectful. However, what I will say is many guys, many times they get to a space to where the communication turns into irritation.
It does.
We have to be very careful, and I'll allow women to speak about how that shows up for them. I'm talking about guys to me.
Right.
How, okay, are we just gonna beat this to death?
To death. Like, you hit it one time and be gone. And I agree with you. I think a lot of women do that. But I will say this, I'm not one of those people. I'm gonna talk about it and be gone. But that's why I want people to understand there is a difference.
Yeah, there's a very difference between what you experience and disrespect. But
so I want that as an example. That.
Yeah, I use that as an example to show how that can show up another way.
Right, exactly.
Unintentionally.
Because women, and that's true, women, women are very emotional creatures, and I don't really count. I'm a woman, but I'm just not very emotional. I'm gonna talk about it, I'm done with it, and I'm not doing recall on it. I don't do recalls. But women need to understand, if a man says something, he means what he says. Now, how you interpret it may need some clarification. But once he tells you, and most time men are very clear, just take it. Don't beat it with a dead horse. And one of my really good couple friends, I love him to pieces, but he said it to me just the other day. He said, Christine, she won't let it go. Like, we be 5 days talking about it. 5 days. And I was like, I looked at her, I said, why do you spend 5 days? She was like, I just needed more clarity. It doesn't take 5 days.
And see, the thing about it is that clarity, because people are sometimes seeking something that they're seeking clarity versus their own peace.
There you go.
And not only are they seeking clarity, they're seeking the need to be right, but they don't realize they need to be right. And the justification of I'm right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, sometimes it's an intuition issue where something is not let go. You're not letting something go because some things are not adding up. I'm not telling people not to pay attention to the details of their lives, because I know people who have found out their wife or their husband was cheating on them because the intuition kept ringing the bell.
Exactly.
So I'm not telling people don't pay attention and don't ask questions. Let me be clear. I'm talking about something other than that type of stuff that is clear. But even with that, if it's something if you feel as though you have to be an irritant to make sure that somebody stays in line, then you need to be questioning that relationship anyway.
You need to be questioning. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to look at, I like when we get to our last segments, but I hate when the show goes by so fast. I feel like we're just on for 5 minutes, but it's actually like an hour. But how do you keep your peace when your partner isn't consistently peaceful? And folks, that's a major conversation we're going to try to take and put in like 10 to 12 minutes. So all I got to say is
it's going to have to be about 8.
It's going to be about 8 minutes. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break.
Out my mind, give me some directions to get to you. Ain't gonna waste my time. I know that we got connection. I think about you. You're on my mind. on my mind. Yeah, I'm going out of my mind, out of my mind, out of my mind, yeah. For you, my love. You drive me crazy, tell me what to do, what to do. I'm on my knees, yeah, I am begging you, begging you. I'll break the rules if it will get me to, yeah.
All right, Gaylon, we're going straight in. You know what? Let's hit it, Gaylon. We need to know what's going on. How do we keep your peace within your partner isn't consistently peaceful?
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to the tools I know. First of all, step up your prayer game, prayer life. Make sure that you are developing a sense of peace,
Yeah.
and forgiveness and release.
Right.
Make sure that you are in balance or in harmony with yourself. You can't be in harmony with someone else when you're out of harmony with yourself, when you're being inauthentic with you.
Right.
So that's the first thing. All right. I'm a big believer in meditation. I could go on. I can go on. I taught a whole lesson last year on meditation, a sermon about the benefits, the medical benefits of meditation.
Yes.
I don't remember the name of it. Maybe I can send a link. You can put it in
Yes.
when you post this. It's pre-recorded. I'm a big believer in meditation because you have to get to a space to where you are contemplating higher ideas and ideals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's hard to be in the dirt when your mind is in the heavens.
It is.
All right? Clearly communicate bottom lines. Okay. I'm a big believer. We did a whole thing last year on my non-negotiable, unalterable terms.
Yes.
So you have to have clearly communicated bottom lines. Okay. With consequences. Now, consequences isn't punishment. Consequences mean if you violate these bottom lines,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go. Or I can't, or if it's not an intimate relationship, or if you violate this bottom line, then there needs to be a clear understanding.
Right.
In other words, apology and a change of behavior for us to be able to interact, whether that's family, friends, business, or whatever. This bottom line has been crossed.
Right.
And we're not okay.
We're not okay.
All right. And I'm not going to pretend like we're okay. All right. Because peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is harmony. All right. And I would always go back to understanding that all right. Now, if your partner isn't consistently peaceful, obviously you have to take a leadership role and start to create and set the pace. Be the example. Model the behavior you want. Many times people say, I want peace. And they've said 3 affirmations and all of a sudden they want their partner to change. Let your partner see your visible change. It's sort of like going to AA or NA. Your partner's not going to believe that you're really not going to deal with the alcohol or the drugs just because you just finished your first week of being sober. They have to see weeks turn into months and months turn into years before they can sometimes exhale.
Right.
So you have to model it. Now, if a person is showing behavior that is dangerous, unproductive, not holistic, then seek to get help.
Right.
Thorough help, counseling, therapy, read the books, do stuff together, try to create a situation where you are creating intimacy and connection. And if those things don't work, then you need to evaluate the relationship, whether that's an intimate relationship, family, or friends. Look, as people used to say when we were growing up, all kinfolk ain't skin folk ain't kinfolk. All right.
I love it, Gaylon.
So we got to be mindful of that. And just because, when you say I do, you say I do to all of those things. You don't say I do to mistreatment. You don't say I do to emotional abuse. You do not say I do to physical abuse. You don't say I do to somebody wrecking your finances with poor decisions and gamblings and drug addiction and alcohol and all the other stuff. So make sure what you say I do to, and make sure you know what you say I don't to.
Well, folks, as you know, I hate to go, but he has to close out his show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Meta Behind Relationships with our Gaylon McDowell, and we'll see you guys next
Wait a minute, I have some
Wednesday.
homework.
Oh, no, this is you. I'm just closing out.
Okay, got it. Okay.
He's going to finish talking to you guys. But thanks again for viewing, and make sure that you like and follow us on YouTube.
Absolutely. And share it. I need people sharing the YouTube and the Facebook I got to get these views up. All right. And if you're getting benefit from this, I need you to share it. Email it, text it to people, share it. And if you can't do anything else, go on YouTube and share it on your timeline and your social media, your Facebook, your Twitter. It will help me a lot get this message out. I need you to help me get this message out. All right. So homework. I have a YouTube video where I did a sermon called My Peace. My Peace. So all you got to do is put in Gaylon McDowell, My Peace in the YouTube server. It comes right up. I give a breakdown about how to create peace for yourself, because that's what really said and done from a spiritual perspective. The second one is I have a video called The Eye of the Storm, not EYE, but the I, capital I, the eye of the storm, how to see God in the experience. You put that into the YouTube server. It will help you learn how to understand what I said earlier. You have experiences. You are not your experience. And you need to learn how to center yourself in your own spiritual nature. You need to understand how to be consciously connected to the presence of God within you and live that peace. Because when you are spiritually connected, 1,000 can fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, as it says in Psalm 91, but it shall not come near you. So God bless you. Remember, there's something radically right about you. I love you, even if I don't know you, because I know who you are. God bless.